Welcome into Throwback Thursday here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. I'm Maurice Patton alongside Wade Neely. We're coming to you from the Lee Company studios of our respective abodes. We will be with you for the next couple of hours, talking sports of local, regional, and national import, and even international, as the Olympics are going on. So yeah, we're international, Wade. How about that?
Yeah, we're off and rolling, spanning the globe, as it were.
To bring you the constant variety of sports.
I mean,
yeah.
Don't let anybody say we're boxed in.
Where's Jim McKay when you need him? The thrill of victory and the agony of defeat. Yeah. Actually, we're going to be international on a couple of fronts. Not just the Olympics. We'll get to that here in a second, but yeah, got a lot to get into, got a lot to look forward to here today. In the second hour, we will be joined by JAMESETTA Cleveland of Sports Mom U. She is a local NIL expert, and there was a development on that front today with the NCAA that I'm looking forward to getting her take on and getting her to share some insight on. So we will have JAMESETTA Cleveland around 3:20. In the next segment on Coach's Corner, we will be joined by second-year Innovation Academy football coach Frank Matherley. And if you've not heard of Frank Matherley or Innovation Academy, that's okay, because this is his second year. This is the Springfield School's second year. You can read more about him if you'd like on the Robertson County Connection, because David Wilson, friend of the show, has a great article up on what they've got going on, but we'll be getting more into that in the second segment, talking to him about the Sentinels. So I'm looking forward to that as well. Also, we got some Braves, got some Major League Baseball. We will be getting into some collegiate and some professional football, which starts tonight. Again, we've been talking about it for the last couple of days, but up in Canton, Ohio, the first NFL preseason game takes place, as the Chicago Bears and the Houston Texans will tee it up tonight. So looking forward to that, and got some other stuff around the gridiron to talk about. And again, the Olympics are ongoing, and we just saw a great performance in women's gymnastics here earlier, I guess within the hour, basically. So we'll get into that. And again, it is Throwback Thursday. In our second hour, we will revisit our conversation from about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago with Matt Brown of Extra Points. This was right in Wade's wheelhouse because a lot of it was related to EA Sports College Football 25. So if you missed that the first time around, catch it here in about an hour. So big show.
Yeah, I'm excited what we got going on in USA. Mo, they're up 3-0. I don't know that they're going to trail the rest of the game. They're playing Belgium right now. Not exactly known for their women's basketball world prowess.
No, that might be that lead may be insurmountable for Belgium right there. So
in 5-on-5, I should say. 3-on-3, USA not so good. But 5-on-5, the real game, the global game, we'll call it.
3-on-3 is kind of struggling, both men's and women's, from what I understand. So yeah, they dropped a tough one to Australia. The women did earlier today, but yeah, it's that's interesting.
Men lost to Poland. I texted a buddy. I said, man, we shouldn't be losing to Poland at really anything. I mean, just be honest, as a nation here. Maybe soccer, or maybe, in the Winter Olympics, I'll give you a little more credence there. But in the Summer Olympics, man, you shouldn't be losing to Poland in much, let alone basketball.
You really feel a little superiority as far as that goes. So yeah, that's a tough one to swallow right there. But again, 3-on-3, both men and women have kind of had their struggles, and I don't know how you address that, just because I don't know enough really about the the high level IQ of 3-on-3. It would just seem like you could throw your three best out there and they would be better. But I do see there's a little bit of strategy involved in this, especially the fast paced game that it is and that kind of thing. Endurance and conditioning and that kind of thing would, I imagine, have an impact on that. So I don't know where exactly the U.S. is coming up short, but they are.
Yeah, they've been getting decimated a little bit at times. Jimmer Fredette, man, he lit the world on stage during his BYU career and had a small NBA career, but he was a little bit of a struggle yesterday, maybe even took a knock. The real highlight, though, is we get to bring back the granny shot because Kenyon Berry's on the team, the son of Rick. So, he brings back and pays homage. So that's kind of fun and it gets you excited, but it hadn't been producing the wins on the guys' side of things. And as we've talked about on this show, the women have been playing with a little bit of a short deck in terms of their injury situation. So the 3-on-3, it's a small price to pay, though, if we're going to go out and just clobber everybody in 5-on-5.
Yeah. I mean, I guess if it comes right down to it, if you can be good at only one, you would prefer that it be the full court game. But I did see somebody pose a question on Xitter, as I heard somebody refer to it, Xitter, combining the X and the Twitter, obviously. Why don't we send NBA players to men's 3-on-3?
I mean, we kind of do in a sense, but yeah, as far as why not send, John Morant and a couple other guys over there.
Or something to that effect, to steal a phrase from somebody else. I'm not sure we're sending our best.
No. And, that'll be the big question, right? Is do you put an emphasis on it? And while we're kind of going down this road, it was cool to see. We talked earlier this week about the women's rugby program, and they finished bronze and everything is kind of rolling. But it seems like they've also, on the piggyback of that, they've gotten a lot of funding. And they're really, it seems like, putting a lot of money in toward that for the next Olympics, which will be held in Los Angeles. So maybe this is kind of the chance for some of these sports to, reassess and look at it and say, yeah, why aren't we better at this? Why aren't we winning this? And so maybe, that's kind of how it happened to an extent, right? With the Dream Team back in the day.
Right. And that we want to put our best foot forward in everything in 2028.
100%. And we're talking about, we took an L here to Poland, which you never, obviously, like I said, you don't want to lose to Poland. But all I know is get ready for next Friday, Poland, because if when breakdancing kicks off, they don't want any part of the U.S. in breakdancing. I can feel very confident in saying that. We may not win the gold, but I promise you ain't taking no L to Poland this time.
No, we're not losing to Poland in breakdancing. I will stake my house on that. So, yeah. Breakdancing aside, that's what we got lined up here for the next hour and 50 minutes here on Main Street Sports today, and looking forward to bringing it to you. So let's go ahead and delve in with yesterday's results and today's schedule on the rundown.
This is the rundown.
Coming in hot, Thursday rundown schedule to come. But first, last night's results. Major League Baseball action. The Braves did defeat the Brewers 6-2 in that series finale there. And the Astros defeated the Pirates 5-4 in that finale. In minor league baseball action, Gwinnett defeating the Sounds 6-3 was your final score there as the Sounds drop a 3-run contest again to Gwinnett. MLS action, more on this to come. Leagues Cup action last night. NFC with a home loss to the Mexican side. The visitors come in and win. Mazatlan 2, Nashville Soccer Club 0. That concluded last night's scoreboard.
Today, 6:20, you can see it on both the MLB Network and on Bally Sports Southeast. It's the Miami Marlins opening a 4-game set at Truist Park against the Braves. Again, that's a 6:20 start there. Just after the Sounds and Gwinnett get started up across town over at Couray Field in Lawrenceville Also tonight, 7 o'clock, we've been talking about it. You can see it on both ABC and ESPN. It's the Hall of Fame game in Canton, Ohio, as the Chicago Bears and the Houston Texans will tee it up. And you want to see them tee it up with the new kickoff rules that will be unveiled tonight. So be sure and check that out. That, ladies and gentlemen, is your rundown. Your top stories brought to you as always by Piggly Wiggly over in Neely's Mill in Columbia. Be sure and check out their delicious daily deli lunch options, which are available until 6 o'clock, as well as their hand-cut meats, and everything is cost plus 10% at the cash register. Piggly Wiggly, Neely's Mill in Columbia, bringing you our top story. And as Wade mentioned, Nashville Soccer Club Open Leagues Cup play against Mazatlan out of Mexico. More international flavor here on the show. And dropped a 2-0 decision in BJ Callahan's debut, along with first assistant John Bello. Did not go so well again. 2-0 they fell. And I think they gave up both those goals before halftime, did they not? No, I'm sorry. I misspoke. It was scoreless at halftime before Ramiro Arcega. Yeah.
Sounds
scored
right.
twice. Yeah, scored twice in about a 7-minute span. And Nashville never really came up with an answer there. So, and you know, we've seen that. We've seen them kind of have a lapse that resulted in multiple goals in a short period of time. And other than that, they just kind of locked things down. But yeah, little disappointing, because as we spoke with Valer Shabila earlier in the week, we kind of felt like this was a group that Nashville had a chance to do some damage in, with Mazatlan from Liga MX and with the Revs of New England. And so now they've got to beat New England, who they lost to not too long ago, to have a chance to advance here. So, you know, and obviously it's a little disappointing in that it was BJ Callahan's debut. You kind of had the storybook ending kind of in mind there, and clearly it just didn't work out.
No, and Mo, I'm not even going to lie. You know, last night I was away from my phone for a good stretch of the night last night, and I'm catching up finally, and it kind of dawned on me. I was like, oh yeah, I better check and see how much Nashville won by last night. And I mean, they had, the first thing I saw was they had Young Buck was there to Nashville's very own, to get the crowd fired up. I said, oh yeah, I mean, name your score, 5-0, 5-1, something like that. And then I scrolled and I said, hang on, this can't be right. I mean, I literally almost fell out of my chair, because that was a shocking result. That would have been a shocking result if it was Gary Smith. That would have been a shocking result if it was Rumba Buntale. That would have been a shocking result if Jurgen Klopp probably was the head coach. I mean, it was one of the worst Liga MX sides at home you take a 2-0 loss to. And so, man, not the debut certainly you wanted. I mean, you know me, I'm the eternal optimist. The good news is it was the first match for BJ Callahan. It was the first match in Leagues Cup play. So, I mean, which Mazatlan had played to, or that was their second one. So, I mean, they did have at least one match under their belt in Leagues Cup action. But, man, there is not a lot to get excited about from last night. You are missing Walker Zimmerman. He's still on Olympic duty. But, I mean, Nashville tried it out. I'm looking at the 11 that they put out last night. And, I mean, it was a solid lineup. It wasn't as if they really brought the B squad or anything. I mean, Mukhtar started, Mayer, Lovitz. I mean, Schaffelberg was in there. So, man, that is a tough L to take at home. Not insurmountable by any stretch, because, as you mentioned, you do have New England. And even though you'll have to play Mazatlan on the road, presumably as bad as they are, surely should be able to pull off a win down there.
Yeah, it was kind of deflating after we talked again to Valera Shabila, and we kind of got the impression that this Mazatlan side was not very good, and you not only do you lose, but you get blanked. It's kind of when we've heard about controlled aggression and that kind of thing. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, again, it's one game. It's 90 minutes, but certainly not the debut that you had hoped to see. You mentioned Walker Zimmerman being away. Tyler Boyd obviously out as well. So, it wasn't a bad 11 that they ran out there, but it wasn't their best 11 either necessarily. So, I mean, I don't know how much that had to do with it, but we've not seen them and Callahan together anyway. So,
Yep. And the only other thing to put this into a little perspective too is sometimes these competitions, these mid-season competitions, we saw the exact opposite with Nashville last year. Certain clubs, they focus on one more than the other. So that's why I'm a little confused, because Nashville did trot out a good lineup last night, but some clubs, I'm not saying they want to lose and get out of there as soon as possible and focus on MLS, but some clubs, that's kind of the approach that they take. And Nashville made it all the way to the finals last year, and the rest of their MLS season was kind of a disaster. So maybe a shift in priority or a shift in emphasis here. But that's the real head scratcher, because if they had trotted out a B or even a C lineup, you'd be okay with that result. But the fact that they did have most of their stars out there was kind of interesting. And now you kind of almost do wonder, I'm not saying throw the competition and then just solely focus on MLS the rest of the way. It'll be fascinating to see what sort of direction the club and the franchise takes going forward, I guess.
Play continues in League Cup group stage action for Nashville SC on Tuesday when they go to the New England Revolution. That'll be a 6:30 p.m. Central Time first touch there. And Nashville SC will need to win in regulation by at least 2 goals to advance to the knockout stage. So,
yeah, interesting tidbit that Valera pointed out the other day is it's kind of an unusual point setup. So, yeah, Nashville is kind of backs against the wall. I misspoke earlier. They won't get that return match. So in a weird way, it's good because you know exactly what you need. And New England is sitting there with 3 points. Mazatlan's sitting there with 3 points. Man, I'm going to be really intrigued to see what happens next Tuesday. And the good news is, like I said, if Nashville does flame out, it's not the end of the world, because then maybe you just really put all your eggs in the basket of MLS play.
right.
But for a new coaching staff, those extra practices, and Valera kind of touched on that as well, those extra practices, those extra moments, those extra sessions to kind of continue your Leagues Cup, that's just free familiarity you're getting with your new coaching staff, which certainly obviously goes a long way.
Certainly does not hurt. Yeah. Let's take a break here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. When we return to the Lee Company studios, we will go to Coach's Corner and chat with Innovation Academy's Frank Matherley, talking a little football. Stay tuned after the break.
We thrive under the lights. A city of performers, putting on one heck of a show. Headlining night after night. Welcome to Smashville.
Whether you're an athlete or a weekend warrior, when it comes to your performance, don't settle for anything less than excellence. We're proud to announce that Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint Clinic is now Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, where we are redefining sports medicine and orthopedics. Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance's team of expert sports medicine physicians understands the unique demands of your body. TOA Columbia specializes in personalized orthopedic care, offering state-of-the-art treatments for everything from sports injuries to joint replacements. Learn more at toacolumbia.com.
Custom Stone Handler supplies over 600 distributors and suppliers with quality stone products. Along with River Stone, we produce and distribute over 100 building, landscape, and other bulk products. Our goal is to provide quality products, service, and partnerships to ensure our customers' success. We firmly believe that the measure of any person or company is how they treat other people and customers. Give them a call at 931-490-4990 or visit CustomStonehandlers.com.
Nashville Sounds Baseball is back in Hit City for the 2024 season. Spend your nights and weekends at the ballpark with weekly giveaways, fireworks shows, throwback deals, live music, and more. Top talent will take the field at First Horizon Park against the AAA Minnesota Twins, Baltimore Orioles, Atlanta Braves, St. Louis Cardinals, Cincinnati Reds, and more. Tickets start at just $10 and are available now at NashvilleSounds.com. We will see you in Hit City.
With Lee Company technology, the best handymen are hands-off. Lee Company techs have been using visual findings and other smart technology tools for years to add transparency and virtually take customers along. You see what we see, whether we're in a crawl space or on a roof. With Lee Company, technology helps us help you, no matter what's happening in the world or at your house.
Presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. I'm Maurice Patton along with Wade Neely, and it is now time for Coach's Corner as we visit with second-year Innovation Academy football coach Frank Matherley. Coach, thanks for taking some time with us. I guess you guys are getting morning work right now with the heat situation being what it is. I mean, hopefully we did not disrupt your schedule too greatly.
Uh-oh. We cannot hear you.
Uh-oh.
We have got a problem with our sound here.
Uh-oh. That ain't
Can you hear us?
We can hear you.
Yep.
But you can't hear us.
All right.
Mark, I guess have him back out and come back in, and we'll see what happens with that. But again, there's an article up on the website. It's up on Main Street Preps, and it's up on the Robertson County Connection by David Wilson. So Innovation Academy is a new school that opened last year. It's Robertson County's only STEM high school, and they played 8-man football a year ago. They reside on the campus of what was Springfield Middle School. Again, played 8-man football last year, went 0-6 in 8-man, and are transitioning into 11-man football. Now, coming in the middle of a scheduling cycle, it makes it tough to get games. Because most everybody is on the backside of 2-year home and home situations, and Innovation Academy ran into that, and their schedule certainly reflects that. We've got Coach Matherley back. Let's see if he can hear us now. Coach? Coach, are things any better this time around? Seems as if they are not.
Everybody's efforting.
Yeah, everybody's working at it. Mark, what do we got? Anything? Nothing?
I'm talking to him.
You're talking to him. Okay. Talk to him. But again, the timing is not great for Innovation Academy as a result of coming in the middle of a scheduling cycle. And so they have really got what could only be described as a meat grinder of a schedule. They are definitely knocking heads with some of the big boys in the sport in this area and across the state of Tennessee. And for a team that again, was 0-6 in 8-man football last year. It's going to be an uphill battle, to say the least. So, again, looking forward to chatting with Coach Matherley to see what his thoughts are on this venture for this team this year.
Yeah,
certainly.
I'm curious, and hopefully we'll get the chance to talk to Coach, but just reading what he has said and what David has written here, it is kind of fascinating to me that, yeah, you played 8-man last year, and, the record obviously doesn't look great, but you're also kind of wondering how much time, practice, energy do you go into coaching per se for 8-man if obviously you're getting ready to transition to full 11-on-11 football, right? I mean, are you coaching in the same way? Are you really trying to get them prepared in that manner, or do you kind of just like, hey, we're just kind of biding our time for next year type situation?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of questions that hopefully Coach Matherley will be able to answer for us here in the next bit, because like you said, it's a really fascinating situation to me, and that's kind of why we reached out to him. So,
yep, and what's Mark got? Maybe back in business here.
We can hear him.
We can hear you. Can you hear me?
Something.
I think we've got you.
We can hear you. Can you hear us? Oh,
I've
awesome.
got you this
Awesome.
time. We've got you. All right. Good deal.
So, absolutely. Coach Frank Matherley from Innovation Academy joining us here on Coach's Corner. And Coach, as we were mentioning while we were trying to get you on, this is y'all's second year as a program, second year as a school, Robertson County's only STEM institution up there. Played 8-man football a year ago, did not fare so well. So you figure, what the heck? Let's just go ahead and play 11. What was the thought process behind going to 11-man this year in your second season, particularly after, some of the struggles that y'all ran into last year?
Well, many things. I appreciate you having us on today. I've also got my AD and my offensive coordinator here with me, Steve Weaver. Coach here with me today, but we 8-man, we got into that league to be honest with you, it wasn't for us, for one. Number two is our league in many ways folded the part we were in, and it went into a transition, and we knew that eventually we'd like to go into 11-man, so it basically just happened. I'm going to call it happenstance. So we went ahead and just kicked the door down and stepped on into 11-man and went on with it.
Okay. As I was mentioning while you were efforting to get on with us, you coming in the middle of a scheduling cycle really kind of made it tough for you guys to put a schedule together. And as we look at it, you had to go out of state for a couple of games. You had to go down to Memphis for a couple of games. And you got some toughies on your schedule, to say the least. I mean, Brentwood Academy kind of jumps out. Bradley Central obviously jumps out. But, South Pittsburgh is a program that is always in the state championship hunt. And Nashville Christian has one of the top quarterbacks in the country, as does Brentwood Academy. But, how did this wind up being the schedule?
Well, as you said, we didn't come in a year when we could get a region schedule. So we weren't able to pick and choose and then have a lot of teams that have open dates. So we had to go on the board and try to find people who had open dates. And if they had an open date that we could work with, we pretty much took them. And these are the people that wanted to play, and we weren't able to play people around within our county. We just couldn't get dates worked out. And so we took who we could get.
Yeah. And that's the always the fascinating part, Coach, is just trying to put the schedule together is a challenge in and of itself. And I'm curious, considering the schedule is tough, and obviously considering this is the first year for 11 for you guys, in your mind, what would be a goal, or what's your kind of mindset as you kind of embark on this new endeavor this year?
Well, we're much more comfortable with the 11 man to start off with. Our team is a much more comfortable team in this system. We fit it better. Our personnel's better. Our coaching staff is more suited to it. The 8-man didn't fit our team for what we did have. And you know, a lot of what we had last year, though, was experience base was very low. So there's a lot of changes there, too. So that helps a lot. And it's hard to it's really hard to explain, but if you get past the difficulty of some of the teams we have, we are overall a better team, and we are in a much better situation for our team in this league.
Okay. Now, I guess you all will have to be classified into a region for the 25-26 year, and that will really help you all a lot in terms of scheduling and that kind of thing. But, you know, what is your mindset? You know, what do you tell these kids when they look up and they see some of the folks that they're playing? Again, Bradley Central made a deep run last year. I think they made it to the quarterfinals. South Pittsburgh is always a candidate to make it to the championship. Brentwood Academy, the tradition that program has, they've kind of struggled a little bit of late for them. And obviously, again, Nashville Christian sending a kid to Georgia, a multiple national champion contender. So, I mean, what is it that you tell your kids to try to kind of balance? You know, we want to go out and we want to play hard and we want to do things well, but even if we do all of that, we may not necessarily have a lot to show for it.
Well, we went through that last year, and we didn't have a problem with that. You know, our kids are going to battle. We've got a great group of kids. They recognize some of those struggles because of experience, and we had, especially in us as that was not our. We weren't able to make adjustments either. But it may be in those you know, there's going to be times that they're going to make memories, though, playing against kids that they may see at the next level, too. There's a whole lot of other teams that are going to play those teams, too, and are going to feel the same way. So I don't feel like we're going to be the only ones if we are that way. But I also think we're going to be a lot more competitive this year in the 11-man league than we were last year, especially with so many kids that last year was their first year of ever playing football. We brought roughly 25 kids to the field last year on the field that had never been on a football field, ever. And we didn't get beat in a way that I would call physically beat most games. We got experience beat. We got 6-point beat. We would hold teams and then give up 6-point plays. The problem was we spent a year. When you start a program like that and you have that much inexperience, you spend an entire season teaching. Our entire goal of this year was, when we came up this year at the beginning in spring, and then all summer, has been get us to August to let us coach. We just want to finally be able to coach kids and not teach every single day. And we're starting to get there, and it's a good feeling.
And honestly, our kids are looking forward to the schedule. They're excited about playing these teams.
Yeah, makes sense. And Coach Weaver, since you kind of jumped in there, I am curious, either one of you guys really, but also reading in this article, starting a program from scratch, there's certainly a lot that goes into it in terms of manpower and bodies available, but facilities also seem like a pretty big challenge for you guys currently, in terms of just practicing or even having the right equipment and sleds and things of that nature. So I'm curious, is that something that you hope to kind of continue to progress as this season moves along, or is this year kind of just get through it and then we'll reassess at the end of this year in your mind? Either one of you guys.
We're hoping to get a little something all the time. We need a little bit of everything. You are correct. So I don't know. I didn't hear the beginning of it. I don't know which story you heard of, which original report or what came out in the paper. So I don't know what you read, but we definitely need some items for the program, and we're working towards that.
As far as facilities, we've got the historic Boy Smith Field. That's one of the reasons that we had Nashville Christian coming and Bradley Central coming. They both asked what our home field was. And when we mentioned it was Boy Smith Field, both of them said, well, let us come to you. So we didn't have to really ask for them to come to us. They said, we want to play on that field. Coach Brother said he played on the field when he was in high school, that he wanted to come back up and bring his team to it. So, and we've made some changes to the field this year. So we're trying to rebrand and build up the program and trying to get the boys to take pride and initiative in building the program. So.
Innovation Academy coach Frank Matherley and athletics director Stephen Weaver joining us here on Main Street Sports Today's Coach's Corner. And Coach, coming up from 8-man to 11-man, how many kids have you got?
We are up to 40 this year. We had 28 last year, and despite the rough season, we lost a couple off that team, but then we gained about 14 or 15. The kids are just really excited that we're stepping up, going to 11-man football.
And I would imagine that the bulk of that 40 played for you last year, as you talk about not having to teach so much, just, kind of get into the value of, them kind of having a better idea of what to expect this time around.
Yes. They are much better prepared. We actually got to have a scrimmage this spring, 11-man scrimmage this spring, and the boys they look so much more comfortable with 11 men on the field, and we actually held our own. So this is something that they can actually go on a weekend and watch the college and the pros. Last year, trying to direct them into watching some 8-man football, about the only thing you can do is either YouTube or Huddle.
Yeah.
So
It's been go ahead.
One other question, guys. I am curious. The way the schedule kind of came together, we've talked about that, and it's all over the place, kind of piecemeal together. Region obviously will help a little bit, but what can you tell us about rivalry? Do you just pick and choose your rival because you're a brand new school? Say, hey, we got an axe to pick with you, Springfield. I mean, how does that potentially work as far as building maybe a natural rivalry for you guys?
Well, I mean, we've got a team here in our county that's probably going to be in our region, we would assume, or at least if they're not, I don't know. I guess we'll travel across the rest of the state to get to our region. So I feel like we're going to have a natural region right here, right down the road. It won't be Springfield. We won't be their classification, but I think we'll try to play everybody. We will try to play all of the Robertson County teams if possible. And there will be some rivalries. I would say Joe Burns will be our most natural rivalry because they're likely going to be, they're 10 minutes away or 15 minutes away, and we should be playing against them. But we're gonna try to play everybody in the county if possible.
Or if you go out and beat Bradley Central this year, then I mean, maybe they want you as a rival now going forward. Is the way I'm thinking about that. Maybe.
Yeah, they might want y'all to come.
We're not scared to play them. I'll tell you that.
They might want y'all to come down to Cleveland after
get
that.
Brentwood Academy one time this year, and they'll be calling you the rival next year. This time.
All I'll say is we're going to have some really good games here at Boy Smith. I'm hoping we have a lot of people come out to watch it. You're going to find out last year what everybody else saw that did come to our games. They didn't see a lot. We might have been behind a lot of times, but we weren't. We didn't get overpowered mostly, but they weren't ready. But they did not quit. I don't care if it was a running clock. Playing. and that's a big deal. And I hope that everybody will come out and see that. If they want to see some of these other teams out here play, come see them for that. We wouldn't mind them being here.
Coach, looking at this article by David Wilson, 16 seniors. Now, obviously, that's not 16 experienced seniors, but that's 16 guys who are kind of setting the tone for you, I would imagine, and kind of setting the foundation for this program. How important is it to have that kind of upperclassman presence, on your roster, in your locker room, that kind of thing?
I couldn't say enough about our kids. The only reason we have a football program is because they want to have these memories and they want to play. I mean, we have 16 kids as seniors. I would say maybe we have 2 kids that ever played football before that are out of those 16, but they're all football players now. I mean, they literally, and they work to get better. They are a great group of kids. I don't think anybody wants them to win more than we do for them. If you want, I mean, because they deserve it. They work hard. They are really good kids. What you got, Coach?
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask you, Coach, prior to your arrival at Innovation Academy, where were you coaching? What is your background as far as football coaching goes?
I helped here some at the middle school over the years. I've been here a long time, mostly coached every other sport in the building. Well, all but one of the girls' sports. And really had decided that over the last, after helping with the middle school several times, just never wanted to be that coach. And then we started a new program, and I was like, they needed a coach. And really, they deserve these moments. They deserve this. I mean, we've got kids. I know you won't understand this, coming from kids that have grown up from junior pro won't understand this, but we've got kids that literally, we're talking about 1 year was in the marching band, or 1 year was just working, and the next year they're playing football because they wanted something to remember. Coach Weaver came from here in the county, had coached football years ago. I've worked with him in the past. This is going back farther back than even here in Springfield when I was here for the last, 12, 13 years. And I've worked with him some, and I knew we've known each other, and he was at the middle school level doing football. And then we brought another coach in that we've known that he was at the high school level. So we've kind of melded together our motley group of coaches who have our kind of experiences all over the place, and at different levels. We've got some others at different levels, coaches, and we know what we want to do. We just hope we can get the kids to do it.
I think it's a little, I'm not sure if ironic is the right word, but the Innovation Academy Sentinels, it kind of reminds me of the Replacements a little bit. And when you mentioned kind of a motley crew, that just kind of brought that to bear a little bit. But Frank Matherley, coach of the Innovation Academy 11-man football team that will be making its debut this fall, August 23rd, week 1. You got Kip of Memphis coming to town, and
right.
Wish you guys luck. We'll be
I appreciate it. We tell them to come out and watch us. We're here.
Absolutely.
In Springfield, Fifth Avenue.
There's a new football team in town in Springfield. Go check them out. Innovation Academy, Frank Matherley. Hey, we appreciate you taking some time with us here on Coach's Corner on Main Street Sports today.
Thanks for your time, guys. Appreciate it.
All right. Hey, good luck to y'all. Hey, when we continue on Main Street Sports today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, we'll talk a little baseball. Stay tuned when we come back to the Lee Company Studios after this.
Nashville Sounds Baseball is back in Hit City for the 2024 season. Spend your nights and weekends at the ballpark with weekly giveaways, fireworks shows, throwback deals, live music, and more. Top talent will take the field at First Horizon Park against the AAA Minnesota Twins, Baltimore Orioles, Atlanta Braves, St. Louis Cardinals, Cincinnati Reds, and more. Tickets start at just $10 and are available now at NashvilleSounds.com. We will see you in Hit City.
Whether you're an athlete or a weekend warrior, when it comes to your performance, don't settle for anything less than excellence. We're proud to announce that Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint Clinic is now Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, where we are redefining sports medicine and orthopedics. Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance's team of expert sports medicine physicians understands the unique demands of your body. TOA Columbia specializes in personalized orthopedic care, offering state-of-the-art treatments for everything from sports injuries to joint replacements. Learn more at toacolumbia.com.
With Lee Company technology, the best handymen are hands-off. Lee Company techs have been using visual findings and other smart technology tools for years to add transparency and virtually take customers along. You see what we see, whether we're in a crawl space or on a roof. With Lee Company, technology helps us help you, no matter what's happening in the world or at your house.
Jones & Lang Sporting Goods here in Columbia has been outfitting teams, officials, and anybody else from T-ball to college for 50 plus years. Be sure and check them out at 931-388-8060 or online at jonesandlang.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods, the look of a winner.
Zion Christian Academy, zioneagles.org or 931-388-5731. You can schedule your appointment. Go tour their campus. It is beautiful over there, and you're definitely going to want to see it. Again, it's zioneagles.org. Give them a call, 931-388-5731, and schedule your tour today. Custom Stone Handlers supplies over 600 distributors and suppliers with quality stone products. Along with River Stone, we produce and distribute over 100 building, landscape, and other bulk products. Our goal is to provide quality products, service, and partnerships to ensure our customers' success. We firmly believe that the measure of any person or company is how they treat other people and customers. Give them a call at 931-490-4990 or visit CustomStonehandlers.com.
Piggly Wiggly, located in Neely's Mill Shopping Center, is Columbia's locally owned and operated Cost Plus 10 grocery store dedicated to serving the community with low prices and smiling faces. Piggly Wiggly offers fresh, hand-cut meats daily as well as daily hot plate lunches from their deli counter. You're certain to see smiling faces and a helping hand when you're here at Piggly Wiggly. Come by and check out our fresh produce, high-quality meats, and more. Down home, down the street, we'll see you at the Pig.
August 1st, 1998, Javi Lopez singled home a run and ex-Nashville Sound second baseman Keith Lockhart drove in a pair. All in the eighth inning as the Atlanta Black Crackers rallied for a 3-1 win over the visiting St. Louis Stars. Both the Braves and the Cardinals were paying tribute to the Negro League teams with which they shared their respective towns by wearing replica uniforms of that era. Kerry Lightenberg worked a scoreless ninth for his 15th save. That was this day in Braves history. Nice. Those little throwback opportunities, and we're seeing more and more of those these days, are kind of cool. It's baseball is such, for whatever reason, it seems like baseball is a lot more steeped in history than other sports, and so the opportunities that they kind of take to revisit some of that stuff is kind of cool to see. So
yeah, and in that sport in particular, yeah, they do those moments very well. In a weird way, the thing that makes baseball to a lot of folks so disinteresting can make it very intriguing, drama filled, and those little moments and those touches and those nods are always special.
Absolutely. All's well that ends well, maybe. The Braves wrapped up a 4-3 road trip with a 6-2 win at Milwaukee yesterday afternoon. Was it done by the time we got off yesterday? Were we?
It was it wasn't maybe officially done, but it was.
But it was
close.
done.
Yeah.
Yeah. And really kind of neat couple of moments. Speaking of moments in baseball, Matt Olson and Travis d'Arnaud went yard back to back twice yesterday, all solos, but they hit consecutive solo home runs in the 8th for a couple of insurance runs after I don't remember when the first ones were, but the second ones again came in the 8th and stretched the league out to 6-2. So big power from those two guys. Big win again to get to 4-3 on this road trip after dropping the first two at Citi Field against the Mets. They got the last two, dropped the opener at Milwaukee, and then bounced back for a 5-1 win on Tuesday, and this 6-2 victory yesterday. It was the first time that Braves teammates have gone back-to-back twice in the same game since Javi Lopez, who we just referenced, and Andrew Jones did it on June 13th, 1998. The only other time was on August 25th, 1993, when Fred McGriff and David Justice did it twice each. So
now that's a classic Braves combo right there.
Just the 23rd time going back to 1961 that you've had a pair of teammates go back to back twice in the same game. So not a real common occurrence, obviously, but it's kind of cool to see, and cooler still when it happens in a victory. You would like to think if it happens, it's going to happen.
Presumably it's going to happen in a win, right?
Yeah, you'd like to think if you get 4 home runs out of 2 guys that you're doing pretty well. So, but big win for Atlanta again. Helped them get to within 6.5 of the top of the National League East, as suddenly the Phillies, and maybe it's just a function of their schedule, but Wade, you kind of talked to this earlier in the year that, the schedule was going to kind of turn a little bit for Philadelphia, and I think they got swept by the Yankees this week.
Yeah, and I forget exactly where I had read or heard it. I'm not digging through like Phillies blogs or anything, so it was some sort of regional or national media that kind of just pointed out that, man, their schedule was a little light to start. And I mean, sometimes that works out, though, obviously in your favor. Not only are you stacking wins, which can either give you a cushion, and then if you do lose those games, you just fall back to earth. But sometimes, not that they really needed confidence, but if you're a team that is needing confidence, sometimes that, you hear learning how to win, that seems like that is a scenario. So it just felt like that their front half of the schedule seemed a little light in the pocketbook, as it were.
Yeah, well,
maybe
so good if you're so far so good if you're a Braves fan. You want to continue this momentum that you've picked up on the road as you head back into Truist Park. Send Charlie Morton out 5-6 with a 4.16 ERA, taking on Miami. Max Meyer gets the start for the Marlins, 2-0 with a 3.00 ERA. And of course, if we're talking about the Marlins, it warrants a Ryan Weathers update. He was recently transferred from the 15-day injured list to the 60-day injured list, which means he cannot come back before August 8th, which is next Thursday. But he is down at their spring training base in Jupiter, Florida, and he has been throwing. And so, maybe when he's eligible to come off, we get to see him again, and maybe he can pick up where he left off, because he was starting to throw really well before he had that issue with his finger, and you really hope he can, relocate that groove that he was in.
Yeah, and you certainly hope that that's the case, because he was in such a rhythm. I think 2 of the last 3 starts he made before he got dinged up, double-digit strikeouts. We talked about him every time. It seemed like he was on the mound because he was pitching at a high level, and that was a team that obviously does not have a lot of bright spots, and so he was kind of carrying the torch for them. And It'd be nice because, man, for him, especially on a personal note, it'd be great to see because it feels like he was really starting to find his groove just in addition to the team, obviously, but just him individually.
Yeah, and it's just been a year that he was traded from San Diego to Miami and was starting to kind of put that Padres experience behind him and going on to bigger and better things before this injury. So it would just be nice if he could come back and kind of build off of what he was able to do earlier this season to close out this season, go into this off season feeling really good and, ready to build on this. So, wishing Ryan the best as far as that goes. Hopefully he'll be back on a major league mound soon. Speaking of double-digit strikeouts, Framber Valdez with 10 of them in Houston's 5-4 win over Pittsburgh as they managed to not get swept by the Pirates.
Yeah, and that was kind of like Nashville soccer last night. I was out of pocket for a little bit, didn't have my phone, and the last score that I have seen was he had, I don't know, I think 3, maybe 4 strikeouts. It was still kind of early, but had given up some runs, and I just mentally had chalked it up to a loss. And then not only did I see the win, I saw the double-digit Ks. I said, okay. So it seemed like he kind of found his groove, and that was a nice, kind of much-needed win for Houston. You don't want to get swept after you kind of had gotten a little bit of momentum. I know the Pirates are, obviously competing right there in the thick of things in the NL. But, man, it just on paper, that's a team that would have felt a little more demoralizing, I think, as the organization goes if they had lost that one as well.
Absolutely. One team who's got plenty of momentum going in the wrong direction. The White Sox lost again yesterday, 10-3 to Kansas City. 17 straight. Wade, I don't want to advocate for anybody losing their job, but how does nobody lose their job in a situation like this?
Man, I mean, I would assume we would have talked about it if someone had kind of taken some heat or been let go, but woof, again, we're talking about a historically bad team. 27 wins, 84 losses. They are a smooth 40 games back in the division right now.
40 games back, 57 games under 500. And again, on pace to be the worst team in baseball's modern era. They're on pace to surpass the New York Mets' 120 losses in their first year, 1962, when they went 40-120. So, at least the Mets had a little bit of an excuse.
Yeah, right. And they are so bad, Mo. You can bet on almost anything, but they are so bad that they have their own section on FanDuel right now that you can bet on when they will get their next win. And as you might expect, the next game is the shortest odds, but just because it's their next best chance or their next chance, I should say. But if you scroll down, you could go all the way down. And the last one on the books is they will not win a game until August 15th, or they will not win a game before August 15th. And that pays 80-1. So, what's the streak at right now? 17? Is that what we said?
The streak is now at 17.
So, 10 more games. I'm surprised I haven't looked this up or we haven't talked about. What is the longest losing streak in MLB history?
Oh, my goodness. I don't think it's over. Is it over 20?
23 games. The Phillies.
Was that the Phillies?
Oh, shout goodness. Out in 1961. They went 47-107. 23 games in a row. And talk about the moments that baseball does well. Think about if you're just in the clubhouse. Nobody ever likes showing up to a bad work situation. But, man, you're getting to play the game. And,
and you're getting paid.
You're getting paid. And the younger players, are probably a little excited to be there. But if you're an old vet, you're just like, woof, what am I – is it worth it? And then when you get that check every week, you're like, well, okay, maybe it is worth it.
The 61 Phillies lost 23. In the modern era, let's see. The 1988 Orioles lost 21 straight. Montreal lost 20 straight in 1969, which was also their inaugural season. Nobody else has lost more than 20 games in a row other than those three teams in the modern era. So, goodness gracious, what's next for the White Sox? Who's next for the White Sox?
I think they got the Twins, according to FanDuel.
Things don't get any easier.
The Twins, and then here we go. This is the showdown that everybody has been waiting for. If they lose all three to the Twins, they get 3 games versus the Athletics coming up.
Oh.
Now, it is on the road. Sometimes maybe that's a good thing for a team there as bad as they are, but it is. They got the Twins on the road and then the Athletics on the road. If they somehow, kept losing all those games, they get the Cubs for a couple games, which would be fun.
It would be kind of ironic if they took that streak into the Cubs and snapped it there.
That's what I'm really kind of rooting for at this point. And then if it does get beyond the Cubs, though, then they have the Yankees coming in. So,
ooh.
Yeah,
it could reach critical mass if that's the case. So yeah.
I mean, I got some Cubs friends in my life, and man, I would love nothing more than the White Sox to keep losing and then sweep the Cubs in that 2-game set. That'd be great.
Hour number 1 of Throwback Thursday is done here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. When we come back, we will be revisiting a recent segment that we had with Matt Brown of Extra Points. So stay tuned for that when we return to the Lee Company studios after this.
We thrive under the lights. A city of performers, putting on one heck of a show. Headlining night after night. Welcome to Smashville.
Whether you're an athlete or a weekend warrior, when it comes to your performance, don't settle for anything less than excellence. We're proud to announce that Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint Clinic is now Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, where we are redefining sports medicine and orthopedics. Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance's team of expert sports medicine physicians understands the unique demands of your body. TOA Columbia specializes in personalized orthopedic care, offering state-of-the-art treatments for everything from sports injuries to joint replacements. Learn more at toacolumbia.com.
With Lee Company technology, the best handymen are hands-off. Lee Company techs have been using visual findings and other smart technology tools for years to add transparency and virtually take customers along. You see what we see, whether we're in a crawl space or on a roof. With Lee Company, technology helps us help you, no matter what's happening in the world or at your house.
Jones & Lang Sporting Goods here in Columbia has been outfitting teams, officials, and anybody else from T-ball to college for 50-plus years. Be sure and check them out at 931-388-8060 or online at jonesandlang.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods, the look of a winner.
Zion Christian Academy, zioneagles.org or 931-388-5731. You can schedule your appointment. Go tour their campus. It is beautiful over there, and you're definitely going to want to see it. Again, it's zioneagles.org. Give them a call, 931-388-5731, and schedule your tour today.
Piggly Wiggly, located in Neely's Mill Shopping Center, is Columbia's locally owned and operated Cost Plus 10 grocery store dedicated to serving the community with low prices and smiling faces. Piggly Wiggly offers fresh, hand-cut meats daily as well as daily hot plate lunches from their deli counter. You're certain to see smiling faces and a helping hand when you're here at Piggly Wiggly. Come by and check out our fresh produce, high-quality meats, and more. Down home, down the street, we'll see you at the Pig.
Nashville Sounds Baseball is back in Hit City for the 2024 season. Spend your nights and weekends at the ballpark with weekly giveaways, fireworks shows, throwback deals, live music, and more. Top talent will take the field at First Horizon Park against the AAA Minnesota Twins, Baltimore Orioles, Atlanta Braves, St. Louis Cardinals, Cincinnati Reds, and more. Tickets start at just $10 and are available now at NashvilleSounds.com. We will see you in Hit City.
We are now joined, as we promised, by Matt Brown of extrapointsmb.com. And Matt, are those bags under your eyes from a lack of sleep from playing EA Sports the last couple of nights, or what's up?
There's been a little bit of that, my friends. We also had to file a story for The Guardian, which ran yesterday. I filed a good 3,000 words for a formal review of the game for Polygon, which I think may run later this week when the game formally releases to everybody. It's about Mint. I did have to go tell my wife and children, Daddy does need to play 22 hours of college football video games over the next 4 days for work.
For
work, which is true. So yeah, there is a monster in my hands. I'm going on vacation later this week. I definitely think I've earned it.
So are you the most well-paid? Are you the most famous gamer there is, Matt?
Definitely. No, there are gamer people out there that are making more money than a lot of professional athletes at this point. Definitely not anywhere near in that category. It's been a strange couple of years because I don't consider myself a capital G gamer. I casually enjoy video games, but it's not my defining hobby. It's certainly not a defining part of my professional career. But I have been writing about this project more than probably anybody else over the last 3 years. I've broken a lot of news on it. I've developed, working professional relationships with a lot of developers, a lot of people inside EA Sports. And so I get associated with this project. So it's surreal to see it finally come out. It's surreal to actually be playing the game. My name's in the credits. I could, see some of the things that I've been writing about for 2 years kind of come together. But I'm also excited to do some other things and kind of pass the torch to maybe the YouTube game community. Because if you're coming to me for advice on how to get good at the game, my friend, you are calling the wrong guy. You should go talk to somebody who doesn't have small children right now.
We talked to Middle Tennessee State radio play-by-play announcer Chip Walters yesterday. We typically talk to him weekly, and MTSU was, I guess, newsworthy with regards to the game because there were some irregularities between their uniforms and what their uniforms should be, I guess. Is that fair, Wade? Is that about right? Am I getting that right?
Yeah, MTSU last year versus Alabama had a jersey malfunction, for lack of a better term, and they thought they got away with wearing some backup jerseys that were locally screen printed. And the next day, the developers from EA sent them a note and said, hey, we noticed these jerseys are different than the ones that you provided us. And so EA Sports noticed that MTSU had different jerseys on. And we found it fascinating, Matt, that the level and the commitment and attention to detail from these guys was so much so that they realized that MTSU was wearing a different set of jerseys, and all they were plain white jerseys, but they knew they were different somehow.
MTSU, not Georgia, not Oregon. With all due respect to our alma mater, they noticed that MTSU was not properly uniformed.
When you play this game, you can, if you want to sit down there and play as Tulane, right? G5 team, not a team with deep football tradition in my lifetime, certainly like the pre-1960s, but not a whole lot recently. I want to say there's like 8 or 9 different uniform combinations. A lot of teams have 5 or 6. A couple have north of 10. I now that I've been playing this for a while, I can't say that they nailed the depiction of every stadium or every single uniform perfectly. Some of that was, I think, an EA problem. Some of that was a Learfield problem. Some of that might have been a school problem. But overwhelmingly, across the board, big schools and small schools, they did depict a lot of those small details. The mantra that they shared with us during the development process was, we know that every team is somebody's favorite team. And so we want to give that a level of attention to everyone as best as we can. And I would look at this effort as a foundational piece as they continue to do that moving forward, right? There's a couple of things I think that some people might hope are in the game this year that aren't. Maybe they'll be in the game next year as they kind of build this thing out. But for the first game in a decade, I think it's a lot of fun.
Absolutely. And Matt, I'm curious, you kind of gave us a little bit of the intro, but at what point did you intentionally, in your mind, for all the success and accolades you've done on your own prior to this, at what point did you decide, I'm going to go full bore and make this game, I'm going to corner the market in terms of news and the business of this game, because you've done a great job of that in the 2+ years, as you mentioned earlier. And I'm curious, when did that switch flip for you, and was there anything in particular that did it for you?
Yeah, one, I appreciate those kind words. I don't remember if I've told this story on this channel here before, but I actually came into breaking news about the game by accident. I was working on a story because my audience are mostly folks that work in the college athletics industry or study it. I was working on a story back in, I think, 2021 about how multiple universities are starting to look to earn more revenue by creating licensed beers. And the way that a school would do that is that they'd partner with some local brewery to share the university IP to create the Pistol Pete Pale Ale or the Wolfpack. I don't even drink. I don't even know, right? Wolfpack whiskey or something, right? So I sent out a bunch of open records requests for some schools that I had heard were considering doing this to get a bunch of communications between the school and their licensing agents about non-apparel kind of properties. I thought, all right, this will be a small story here that a couple of licensing agents and some ADs might read and appreciate, and then we move on. And that's when I got a copy of the first video game proposal, which laid out when they expected the game to come out, on what platforms, how much they're paying the schools in licensing. It was like, I think, a 5-page memo. Nothing game breaking, nothing explaining like gameplay features or anything, but it was the document that laid out when the game was going to come out. And as soon as I saw that, I went, shoot, this is way more interesting than beer. So we're gonna. I think I tweeted just like one relatively picayune sentence, right? Like, okay, hey, according to this memo I obtained, the initial target release date is July 2023, which is true. This game came out a year later than it was originally projected. And then like I go to my kitchen to like do some dishes. I come back, my phone, it's got like 800 retweets. And that's when I realized, like, you know what? The audience demand for minutia for this project is so deep. And I probably have a bit different sourcing than my peers because I spend so much time writing about industry and licensing and agents and some of that space that I should continue to kind of pull at this thread and see what I can learn. And I've been fortunate that not only have people responded, but I've been able to kind of grow as a reporter.
With that, you have kind of become the preeminent guy on that subject. And I mean, obviously the work shows up, but you don't set out to be that guy, I don't guess, but it certainly is the way it has panned out, feels like.
Yeah, and that's kind of the way the being a reporter goes sometimes, right? A lot of this gig is about showing up. And it kind of depends on where the news cycle goes. But if you build relationships ahead of time and you're constantly there, then you're in a position to go where current events take you. And that's, I think, a little bit what happened here. The other thing that helped as I've reported on this, and I think as I continue to potentially write about games in college athletics, is I've made a computer game before. We made our own game, Athletic Director Simulator, which is available to Extra Point subscribers. And it's not a terribly complicated computer game. But that process, and then realizing how costs can expand beyond what you initially budgeted, or learning about what it's like to actually debug something, or try to figure out and pencil out this plan of how you make something fun, and how you respond when your audience or maybe your licensing partners feel differently. On a very small scale, I think helped inform the kind of questions I would ask to developers when I would go at EA, because I can speak on maybe a different level about what it's like to have to write up a different game design document about how to respond to your community. And a lot of my readership questions and some of the frustrations I think about all of this stem from the fact that the general public, I don't think, has a very sophisticated understanding of what it takes to make a computer game. to make a video game. I think people have a vague idea how much work it is to make a movie. You could see how much a movie budget is. They have a vague idea of what it takes to write a book. I don't think people really understand how to make a game, and so that's why when there's something that's imperfect or imprecise, maybe people fly off the handle a little bit more because they assume it's much easier than maybe it is. Yeah. And my background has maybe helped me a little bit show more empathy to the people behind the scenes.
Matt Brown of ExtraPointsMB.com joining us here on Main Street Sports today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. Matt, what was your reaction? I guess it's been about 10 days or so ago when Arch Manning, who had so famously opted out of the game, puts out a YouTube video with Uncle Eli announcing that he is now in the game. What was your reaction? What was your response? Because it just screamed diva to me, and maybe I'm being a little harsh, but so I'll ask somebody who has a little bit more knowledge about the entire situation.
So it's interesting because Arch himself never came out and said, I don't want to be in the game. There were a few other reports that would anonymously quote people in the Manning camp. But Arch himself, to the best of my knowledge, was never directly quoted anywhere saying he didn't want to be in this. And as I talked to people at EA and with Open Doors that helped facilitate some of the secondary marketing contracts, and with One Team Partners, the company that handled the group licensing, the idea that Manning was going to opt out was news to all of them. They had created promotional graphics and materials for him to help showcase the game way back in March, like a lot of other major players in the industry did. So it isn't totally clear to me whether this was a miscommunication somewhere, whether this was the Manning camp skillfully negotiating for a little bit of extra money and extra exposure for their clients, by holding out and trying to provide leverage. I don't know if it was something else entirely. The only thing that I know is from people I've spoken to in the licensing and EA industry, the feedback I've gotten was nobody thinks that it was Arch that was driving all of this. There are a handful of very good, productive college football players who aren't in the game right now. And I don't know to what extent how many of those were opting out versus they forgot to turn in their paperwork correctly versus agent miscommunications. I mean, we're looking at a player pool of nearly 12,000 people. These things are going to happen. But I don't feel like I have enough firsthand reported knowledge to say this guy made a mistake one way or the other. At the end, it seems like he did pretty well for himself.
Let me ask you this. In the grand scheme of things, I mean, having Arch Manning in the game, obviously from a name standpoint, is probably huge. But the reality of it is, as we sit here on July 17th, he is at best a second string quarterback for the University of Texas. How big a deal is it that he is in the game?
Realistically, I don't think it really matters that much. And a big part of that is because unlike Madden or unlike other major AAA sports video games, the dominant mode that most consumers are going to be playing here is with Dynasty. And the whole crux of Dynasty is you're a coach and you're trying to rebuild a program and help it grow over multiple seasons. In 3 years, a couple of days in your simulation, Arch Manning's gone. He's off to the NFL or the CFL or Congress or whatever it is that he wants to do next. So he's not going to be in the game either way. Realistically speaking, somebody who plays as Texas is getting 1, maybe 2 seasons with the guy. Whereas if you play Madden, you're going to have Pat Mahomes as part of your core experience for 8, 9, 10 plus years. And you're going to spend the majority of your time playing with those current guys. I think if you're a Texas fan, it would have been a bummer not to have him. You would have had an AI generated guy that's not as good. But I don't think most of America would notice if a backup wasn't there on any position, particularly a quarterback.
Absolutely. And Matt, I appreciated the Tulane shout out because I am the offensive coordinator at Tulane at the moment. And so Rufus Steele is getting ready to take over as the offensive coordinator. But I wanted to ask you, prisoner of the moment, it seems like this is a smashing success beyond everybody's kind of wildest imaginations. What feedback, if any, have you heard from college football players or administrators? Have you got any instantaneous feedback on on that community and kind of how they feel they are either portrayed or how the game has depicted them thus far?
Yeah, I imagine this is something I'm going to try to do some more reporting on when I get back late next week. What I do know is that many universities are trying to lean into this to create community and use this as an extension of their university branding efforts. And I think a school in particular to watch for doing this is going to be Kennesaw State, who recognizes, oh boy, there's going to be a bunch of gamers throughout the country who are nowhere near metropolitan Atlanta who are going to pick us as their first dynasty team. So let's explicitly lean into that and try to introduce ourselves to those people and say, okay, great. You are now committed to spending the next 12 hours of your life with the Kennesaw State Owls. Here's who we are. Here's why you should be fans of us moving forward. Here's what's great about our program, besides the fact that it didn't exist 9 years ago and we're in a recruiting hotbed, and which I think is smart. I think FIU ought to do that. I think Akron ought to do that. And it's not a way of drawing attention to the fact that your team's probably going to stink this year. It's about meeting people where they are. I can think of off the top of my head about 6 different universities that are hosting launch parties on behalf of the game. A couple of them are using those fundraising efforts for their collectives, inviting people to come play the game against current players and show up and play it on the stadium big screen or in the basketball arena. And I imagine more schools are going to do that over the coming months. There's probably going to be a couple players who are like, I don't think that you got my haircut wrong or you got my ratings wrong. But it happens in Madden and it happens in NBA 2K2. And this is the first year that they've ever done this with real players. There's going to be some hiccups. But I imagine the response from the .edu email address crowd and the college sports industry crowd is going to be overwhelmingly positive.
It's a little disturbing to hear you mention Kennesaw State by name, as they are now members of Conference USA, which Middle Tennessee State, our alma mater, again, is also a member of. So hopefully somebody over on campus is listening to this and reacting accordingly. Maybe we will just send them a clip of this instead. Matt Brown, extrapointsmb.com, joining us here on Main Street Sports today. And Matt, before we let you go, a couple of things. One, you have referenced Madden on a couple of occasions. Wade and I were talking about the EA Sports game and mentioned that you said this isn't going to be as big as Madden. Is that still your stance?
You know, that's a great question. I was actually talking to a senior developer just a couple of days ago about the initial sales numbers. And the initial sales projections, both from the financial industry and internally at EA, were admittedly pretty conservative. And part of that was because there was a lot of uncertainty about this game, about how level of in-depth it was going to be, about how it was going to be reviewed immediately at launch, how big this market was. I think I can say without getting in trouble that the early commercial response for this game has exceeded quite comfortably those initial conservative expectations, right? Beforehand, I would be always hearing that, 2 million units would be a very good year. And now I'm hearing they think they could pretty comfortably exceed 2 million over the course of this cycle. I still believe Madden is going to sell more units, period. And part of that is just because of the NFL being a dramatically more popular culturally brand than college athletics, and that's not a pejorative towards college sports. That's just the shield, and also that the NFL and Madden are able to sell better internationally. And then for this year, where college this title is expected to have a pretty soft, only the hardest of the hardcore kind of audience outside of North America. But in a couple of years, perhaps that changes.
Aside from gaming, Matt, I mean, obviously that is what you do, but it's not all you do with Extra Points and extrapointsmb.com. Earlier this week out in Dallas, and we'll be talking more about SEC Media Days later in the show, but Georgia coach Kirby Smart mentioned that the Georgia Collective has begun fining student athletes for indiscretions such as vehicular violations and the like. How much of a slippery slope is that?
You know, it's a good question, and it's the sort of thing that I think any athlete who is an elite football or basketball recruit, top 300 football, top 100 basketball, the kind of person who is likely to sign a multi-year 6-figure plus contract with the collective. That person needs to absolutely make sure that they have independent counsel reviewing that to better understand what kind of flexibility or freedom a collective has to dock your pay based on not just athletic performance or academic performance or anything else. Like if you're a college coach and if you play in the NFL and in a couple of other private industry jobs, you might have something called a morals clause, which is like if you are convicted of a crime, if you are the subject of a very publicly embarrassing news story, if you do X, Y, or Z, that you might face, even if it's in your independent time, you could face fines or dismissal or other penalties, right? But you have to make sure that group isn't just like claiming that right if it wasn't specifically stipulated in the contract. What also I think speaks to the very silly nature of college athletics right now, where you have a third-party entity that's paying the player. You have a third-party entity now that's handling what's really the most effective discipline of that player. But it's the coach that is controlling that player, right? Like the coach is the one that sets playing time. The coach is the one that sets the team rules. The coach is the one the guy has a relationship with. And then you have this independent group that's doing the difficult stuff the coach doesn't want to do. There's a reason we don't do it that way in literally any other sports entity in this country or anywhere else. And it's because it's patently ridiculous. And we'll see as more and more judges examine how we run college sports in this country, what they think about that kind of relationship.
Matt Brown of ExtraPointsMB.com joining us here on Main Street Sports today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, and dropping knowledge to a level that, well, Wade can probably get to. Me, not so much. Matt, we appreciate you spending some time with us. Get some sleep.
All right. Thanks, friends.
Matt, I'm stand by later at some point. I've got you on the friends list. We're definitely going to have to get that game in. I'm working in the lab right now, trying to not get blown out by you. So
listen, I am quite confident that once we get on the sticks, you guys are going to throw me into a garbage can. I'm a reporter. I'm good at making jokes online sometimes. I am not an offensive coordinator. Tulane would have fired me.
Who is the best team you've played as so far, Matt?
Well, the best team I've played is my alma mater, which Ohio State. It's overwhelmingly the best statistical defense and has playmakers all over the field. My dynasty is not with Ohio State because I think anyone that starts with a 5-star team is someone that you should make fun of at parties. My current dynasty is with Utah State right now, and I am getting destroyed because it turns out you actually need lots of good offensive linemen if you want to be able to throw the ball downfield. Who knew? Not this guy.
Novel concept, right?
I know. Who knew? All right. Be well, fellas.
Hang in there, Matt. We appreciate it.
With Lee Company technology, the best handymen are hands-off. Lee Company techs have been using visual findings and other smart technology tools for years to add transparency and virtually take customers along. You see what we see, whether we're in a crawl space or on a roof. With Lee Company, technology helps us help you, no matter what's happening in the world or at your house.
Piggly Wiggly, located in Neely's Mill Shopping Center, is Columbia's locally owned and operated Cost Plus 10 grocery store dedicated to serving the community with low prices and smiling faces. Piggly Wiggly offers fresh, hand-cut meats daily as well as daily hot plate lunches from their deli counter. You're certain to see smiling faces and a helping hand when you're here at Piggly Wiggly. Come by and check out our fresh produce, high-quality meats, and more. Down home, down the street, we'll see you at the Pig.
Whether you're an athlete or a weekend warrior, when it comes to your performance, don't settle for anything less than excellence. We're proud to announce that Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint Clinic is now Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, where we are redefining sports medicine and orthopedics. Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance's team of expert sports medicine physicians understands the unique demands of your body. TOA Columbia specializes in personalized orthopedic care, offering state-of-the-art treatments for everything from sports injuries to joint replacements. Learn more at toacolumbia.com.
Custom Stone Handler supplies over 600 distributors and suppliers with quality stone products. Along with River Stone, we produce and distribute over 100 building, landscape, and other bulk products. Our goal is to provide quality products, service, and partnerships to ensure our customers' success. We firmly believe that the measure of any person or company is how they treat other people and customers. Give them a call at 931-490-4990 or visit CustomStonehandlers.com.
Throwback Thursday continues here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. I'm Maurice Patton, along with Wade Neely, and we mentioned that Matt Brown was dropping knowledge. Well, this next guest will be doing so as well. I am thoroughly confident. JAMESETTA Cleveland of Sports Mom U joining us here. And first of all, JAMESETTA, thanks for joining us. Good afternoon.
Thank you for having me. Good to be here.
Hey, absolutely. Mark, turn her up just a little bit, if you would, please. JAMESETTA, I reached out to you because there's an article on The Athletic today by Chris Vanini, one of their great, well, all of their writers are great, but one of their great college athletics writers. NCAA launches NIL deal transparency platform in push to publicize market information. And I was at a function a few weeks ago of local college basketball coaches, and they spoke to the need for this, and pretty much everybody involved in college athletics right now, this is pretty much at the top of their list, that, we just need to know what people are doing conclusively, rather than just being told by the prospective student athlete that they got this offer here or this offer here or whatever, but we don't know what is going on, what the market, bears, and that kind of thing. And NIL Assist went live today, providing, I guess, anonymous NIL compensation information, as well as a service provider registry and educational programming. And, I guess the schools will enter this information, and, athletes and other stakeholders will be able to look and see, what players are getting, what players at a specific position, what players at a specific, competition level are getting in NIL. How much of a game changer, in your opinion, is this?
So take this with a grain of salt. This particular version, I don't think will be, because right now there's already a compliance process where if you have a deal, you have to submit it to your compliance department. So they already know who's getting what. The reason I don't think in the NCAA Assist clearinghouse will be a big impact is because it's completely voluntary. So I do agree. Well, but that's okay, because there's another clearinghouse that just launched as well. So I am completely in alignment with the fact that families as well as student athletes do need to understand who they are doing business with. Because the simple understanding would have, like, for example, there was a young man from Florida. I think his last name is Dexter, Jerron Dexter, who signed a deal where he ended up offering the company a percentage of his actual NFL salary. And he had no idea that he'd done that. And so he had to go to court because, and I'm quite sure, he's going to win because of the way that the law is written. But like, you do need to understand who you're dealing with. If someone comes and says, I'm an NIL agent, you do need to understand what that actually means. Most families don't understand the difference between an actual contract agent who's going to negotiate your employment contract with the professional league and a marketing agent who would come in and negotiate your contract with like a collective a collective or with a business owner that wanted to do an endorsement deal. And families do need to understand that sometimes you don't need an agent. For example, even though there are agents who are negotiating a deal with collectives, families really don't need that. They really just need an attorney, because collectives know what they're going to offer you. They know if you have wriggle room. So, but it does allow an opportunity for agents who are full service to come in and say, I'm going to establish a relationship with maybe a high school kid or a college kid in hopes that I can actually keep them when they go pro, and then I get to negotiate their league contract. So I do believe that it's necessary. So while this one is voluntary, another one that is launching is through a company called Advance NIL. And it's the brainchild, if you will, of Courtney Altimus and Luke Fedulum. It's run by the Athlete National Sports Business Clearinghouse. And what the reason I think this one will be successful as opposed to the one that the NCAA is doing is because Courtney and Luke have been smart enough to partner with Student Athlete NIL. And they're a management company that manage about 45, probably more collectives. And the way that they're teeing this up is if you're a business that wants to work with athletes, if you pay for this and go through the certification process with the Athlete National Sports Business Clearinghouse, then you get to work with the athletes that are a part of the collectives managed by Student Athlete NIL. If you don't register with our clearinghouse, then this group of collectives is not going to allow you. They're not going to reach out to athletes on your behalf. You won't have access to their athletes. And so when companies realize, or when agents realize, hey, there's a group of kids out there that I just won't have access to, that is the stick that makes the carrot worthwhile. And so while I love the idea, I just think theirs is going to be a little bit more successful because there's a bit of compulsion. 45 collectives all throughout the country. You're literally talking about thousands of student athletes. If we don't register as a part of your clearinghouse, then I don't get to work with you. And they're going to do their due diligence. They're going to do, which is one of the things that I couldn't find the NCAA what they were going to ask. So I know from Courtney's company, what their clearinghouse is going to do a background check. It's going to make sure you have your criminal history. It's going to check the sex offenders registry. They're going to check your social media as a business owner / agent who wants to work with athletes. They're going to check to make sure you're certified. So they're going to do a lot of checks, and they're going to monitor you for at least a year. So for me, the concept is needed and necessary. It's just that with everything, the NCAA had no stick to go with their carrot. And if you make something completely voluntary, why would I do that? You're not doing anything. You're not denying me access to anyone. So I think the Athlete National Sports Business Clearinghouse, you'll get traction there because that's a lot of athletes to not have access to.
Yeah, very well said, JAMESETTA, and thank you again for taking some time to chat with us today. And I'm curious, in your mind or your expertise, if we picture the old quote unquote NCAA model, kind of call it the early days, and then we have fully, employed by the university, quote unquote, as we'll call it, kind of the end days. In your mind, where do we sit on this kind of wavelength? Where are we in the NIL landscape? Are we just kind of still setting out to shore? Are we kind of maybe in the middle, or where do you think we kind of are on this timeline? Because it feels like we've made a lot of progress in a short amount of time. And I guess I'm curious how much more progress there is still to be made in your mind.
For me, I think we're just setting out. And the key reason is because the NCAA won't acknowledge that student athletes are already employees. They already do the things that employees are. And if someone would just simply take the opportunity to say, let's reimagine college athletics as a whole, we would get further. What I see is the NCAA doing what it has always done, which is waiting until they cannot avoid making a change and then making a change. Well, you're going to have to make the change because you keep losing in court. So just rip the Band-Aid off and let's really bring the best and brightest minds outside of the world of academia. Because unfortunately, people who are in the system, they're really struggling with creativity and imagining a new world. So you have to bring people who are outside of the system to let's just throw some things on the wall, acknowledge what you've really built, and let's share the revenue. If you just do that voluntarily, you wouldn't keep losing in court. And it's really taking a very long time because they just won't submit and realize that the existing model won't work. And so it's unfortunate, but I think we have a long way to go.
And also kind of in that same vein, it feels like NIL is certainly kind of in a capitalistic type mold where the highest or most visible athletes are certainly getting paid the most. What discussions are to be had or going forward? Is that a concern for the NCAA as far as potentially leveling that playing field where a fringe athlete for insert sport here maybe is entitled to the same amount of wages as someone else from their NIL deal?
I'm going to say something, and lots of people are probably going to be mad, but we don't have NIL yet. What we have is a legalized system of pay to play.
Pay for play.
And part of it is because the existing people, one, they don't want to admit what we have. True NIL is about business. It's about businesses that are based on student athletes like EA Sports and their video games and TV. It's about businesses that athletes can now start because they couldn't do that before without a waiver. And it's about businesses that they can partner with. What people understood is they understood people putting a bag of money in a back porch and buying an athlete. And because that's what they understood, unfortunately, the world of education has 50 million business programs, but very few visionaries who are out there to say, hey, this is business. Let's teach these guys and girls how to do business. And so what they allowed to happen is a system that everybody knew. Everybody knew pay for play. Everybody knew inducements. And that's really what we have. When you get an athlete who's super popular and you say, okay, I'm going to give you $100,000, $1 million, 50 grand. I'm athletes, get your money. Get your money. I'm not mad at you. However, if you have a value, it's documented that people know in terms of revenue to the schools how much money you're going to get, how much money you're going to bring to the table. I think if you're a 5-star, the articles I've read say they generate an extra half $500,000 to $650,000 in revenue. So they already know how much money you're going to bring. And so they've just kind of allowed that system to be retrofitted. But we don't have business. And NIL at its core, if you look at why people went to court, they went to court for a share in the revenue because those businesses are based on student athletes. You can't have it without them. So when we get real NIL, then we'll have real change, but we don't have that currently.
JAMESETTA Cleveland of Sports Mom U joining us here on Main Street Sports today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, talking NIL. And JAMESETTA, I think that anytime we bring you on, I think it's worth it to kind of get into your background and how you got where you are, because it's always fascinated me that you're kind of self-made in this space. It started with your son, Ronald Cleveland, who was a talented football player at Battleground Academy, and his recruitment and just the way that you, again, just got yourself up to speed to be able to help your child. But talk a little bit more about what you do and Sports Mom U.
So I run a consulting firm called Sports Mom University Consulting. And what I do is I help sports moms and their families navigate the world of recruiting, name, image, and likeness, and going pro. And in our life, in our community, super transparency, we have athletes that go pro in multiple sports every year, but that's not what we mean when we say going pro. They're all going to go pro at life. No one retires from their sport. And so we want to teach them how to go pro at life and use athletics as a pivot. And you are quite right. I got my company because I went through the recruiting process. I went through it once with my oldest daughter, Synovia, for cheerleading and track. And she decided she didn't want to do a sport in college, which was totally fine. And then I went through it again with my son, Ronald, for football and basketball. And I realized, wow, it's very different when you get into the revenue generating sports. And I just wasn't raising an athlete. I was raising a person who used football and sports as leverage to open the door for opportunities. And I was looking for the place to go where if you're a parent who knows that you're not raising an athlete, well, who trains us? Who teaches us how to raise athletes who are whole people, not just athletes? And I couldn't find it. So he played for 4 years at the Air Force Academy, Division I in the Mountain West. And then he graduated in 2019 and I started my company. And I've been I've had my company since 2019. And I got into the space of NIL simply because I was following it. I was hoping Ronald would have an opportunity, but we missed it by a few months. He graduated in May of 2019 and California passed the Fair Pay to Play Act in September of 2019. But I noticed and you can see it now, in the world of name, image, and likeness, there are no parents. And parents are the only group that really, other than athletes, parents are the only group that have to deal with 100% of the consequences of an NIL deal, good or bad. And so a few years ago, actually in June of 2021, I took everything that I knew about NIL and I put it in a class and I taught it for free on Thursdays. And I was like, okay, Jesus, we're going to teach 4 classes. And here we are. A couple of years later, I still teach the Thursday class and it has just become a part of my business where I help athletes understand who they are and families and build brands and launch businesses. So it's been really interesting just to say this was not supposed to be a thing. It was only supposed to be 4 classes.
That said, just the wherewithal on your part to get yourself in a position to understand things to the point that you are able to, build a cottage industry out of it, I just think is amazing for one thing. But just what you're doing in this space is something that I've not seen a whole lot of, and I'm just glad to have you as a resource, to be honest, and to kind of help us understand some of the significance of what has taken place today with these NIL clearinghouses. And I think it's interesting you say that, it's voluntary, but it would seem like to me that everybody would benefit from participating in it. Even, I get that as long as it's voluntary and people don't have to do it, there's going to be somebody that doesn't. But it just feels like it feels like knowledge that everybody would benefit from having and benefit from sharing. And so, and maybe I'm just a little bit less skeptical than you are, which I don't know that anybody would ever say that about me, less skeptical. But I would just like to think that everybody is about, being helpful to as many folks as possible. I mean, the institutions, if the coaches know what other schools are doing for QB2, then maybe they have a better idea of what to do for theirs. If a point guard that's being recruited at the mid-major level knows what other point guards are getting at the mid-major level, and to your point, none of this is NIL, because again, name, image, and likeness I thought was supposed to be get on campus, show somebody what your value is and then go from there. But these folks are discussing it in the recruiting process. When your value is projected and not actual necessarily on that campus or in that program. So I get it when you say that none of this is NIL. I chuckled when you said that.
I'm surprised. I'm more jaded, and I won't say that it's undue. It's just what I see looking in the world. People would actually have to care. Like they would really actually have to care. People would actually have had to understand exactly what NIL truly is in order for them to actually think about, hey, this is a good thing. Because right now, for example, you have companies like Open Doors. They are partnered with a plethora of universities. They track data, but what data is used to do is it's used to depress the value of student athletes. They want to say, what's the fair market rate? Well, in true capitalism, the fair market price is whatever the market will pay. And that is not your business, actually. But what you see is the data that people want to use is not the data to say, let's help athletes build businesses. It's data that they want to say, well, you're not worth this amount of money. You're only worth that because we have these contracts and we see these amounts and we take an average. So they really would have to want athletes to succeed. Because I'm going to be really honest, people don't like this either. All these little companies that they have, you don't need any of them. 100%. I have not encountered a university that didn't have a business program. Every day, universities are teaching kids how to understand taxes, teaching them they're doing capstones on how to create businesses. They're teaching them how to market. They're teaching them how to do social media. There are entire degrees on these things. If you really cared about athletes, you'd make sure they took these classes where they actually have to learn something because they actually have to get a grade to graduate. So and I say this because I'd say 90% of my clients that I actually help, they come from schools that are Power 4 that have these services, but they're not services that are truly geared towards the population. It's a one size fits all type of thing. And so lots of athletes fall through the cracks. But really in this industry, it's very hard to get past the level of why does this athlete make 50,000 or 100,000? Or there's a young lady that plays softball. Texas Tech is giving her $1 million. I'm not mad. Like what? There are people who are like, I'm an assistant coach. Why am I not making as much as this athlete? So you'd really have to look at the way that people think of athletes as truly labor, not as partners. Full partners you want to educate, full partners you want to protect, full partners you want to make sure that they have this money 50 years from now. But when they're interchangeable parts, maybe not so much.
JAMESETTA Cleveland, I told you she was going to bring some knowledge, and she never disappoints. And I feel like we're leaving a lot on the table with this conversation. But as I look at the clock, we've got to step away. I would love to get you back on here soon to pick this up and go in some other directions with it. But we really appreciate you taking some time with us this afternoon and look forward to visiting with you again.
Anytime, Mo, just let me know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We are going to, well, we've probably already blown by our final break here on Main Street Sports today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. We are going to jump into the grab bag, and let's start in college football. Specifically, let's start in Athens, Georgia, where receiver Rara Thomas has been dismissed after his arrest earlier this week on multiple family violence charges. And, you know, again, I go back to the conversation that we had with Ben McKee of GoVols 24/7. It was right before the SEC media days. And he said, it's quiet, which is good. And then right after that, a couple of Georgia kids got arrested for moving violations. And now this pops up. You know, this is the opposite of quiet. This is the opposite of good. And this is what Steve Spurrier was referring to when he said that he liked to play Georgia early. But Thomas, who was a transfer from Mississippi State and is a senior, was charged earlier this week again with cruelty to children, family violence, and 2 misdemeanor counts of battery family violence. Had been suspended from the team and indefinitely, is out on $3,500 bail, and is no longer a member of the Georgia football program.
Yeah, and you know, Georgia is deep enough that you know, putting all the social commentary to the side, as far as just X's and O's for them, they are deep enough that they can absorb a blow. But I mean, it wasn't as if this guy was at the complete bottom of the depth chart. He's probably going to be a second maybe third or fourth option, most likely. It sounds like had a decent start to his career at Mississippi State, and factored in a little bit with Georgia last year, but they obviously had some major weapons in terms of their receiving and tight end core. So systemically, man, this is a tough look for UGA. And like I said, the good news for them is at least they keep winning games, because if they were not winning as many games right now, things would really, really be dicey.
It's a tough look for a Georgia football program that has had a lot of tough looks over the past few years. And, we talked not too long ago about some of those folks and, being fined by their collective as a result of their transgressions. But I don't know how much longer this continues to happen at Georgia specifically before it becomes an issue, because right now it doesn't seem to be.
Yeah, and it seems like the NIL, hitting them in the pocketbook is really, I feel like, unfortunately, where it's going to have to take hold, and it is continues to be a bad PR look for one of the top programs in the country.
23 catches, 383 yards, and a touchdown last year for Thomas. So it does kind of hit them, Wade, in the passing game from the standpoint that they lost Brock Bowers, obviously, as well as Ladd McConkey and Marcus Rosemy-Jacksaint. So from a depth standpoint, he was gonna contribute. So,
and that's the thing, their team is so good, right? They don't rely on just one super duper star. I mean, they kind of, what makes them so good is their depth, and losing him obviously will hurt. It's not as if he's just a throwaway to the program.
Yeah. We mentioned the Bears and Texans play at 7 tonight. You can see it on ABC and on ESPN. Another note from the NFL, though, before we get out of here. Former Titans running back Deontay Foreman apparently suffered a direct blow to the head that resulted in neck pain during Cleveland Browns preseason workouts earlier today in White Sulphur Springs, West Virginia. He was transported via helicopter to Carilion Roanoke Memorial Hospital in Roanoke, Virginia. He's expected to be released sometime today and return to the team, as x-rays and CT scans were negative, but certainly a scary moment in training camp for the Browns. Toward the end of punt period, he suffered that blow. They've been practicing at the Greenbrier Resort in West Virginia. Sounds kind of cushy for preseason camp.
It's got a little swag to it there.
Just a bit. So, but yeah, that's there is that. Also, real quick before we go, if you are a UT fan and you are going to Neyland Stadium this fall, you can enjoy Vol Lager. Yeehaw is a brewing company that also, along with Old Smoky Moonshine, that will be selling Vol Lager and will make it available in the stadium this fall. So be on the lookout for that. It's a pretty can too. I don't know that Mark necessarily has access to it, but friend of the show, John Bryce of footballscoop.com, has posted something on their website on that. So be on the lookout for Vol Lager this fall. From the NBA, former Butler standout Gordon Hayward retired earlier today after 14 seasons in the professional ranks.
And I still go to bed every night just wishing that half-court shot would have went in.
USA.
Man, it would have solid career. I think a lot of he probably exceeded some folks' expectations.
I did not realize he was still in the league, to be honest.
Yeah, still kicking. He was on the Hornet, so you might have missed him pretty easily the last couple of years. But he had a solid career, and like I said, a little more elongated than I think some folks would have anticipated.
14 seasons, average 15.2 points, 4.4 boards, and 3.5 assists. So, yeah, I mean, you'll take that, and you will take the check that came along with it. Be sure and join us tomorrow at 2 o'clock right here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. We will have Jeff Hem, play-by-play voice of the Nashville Sounds, and we'll see who else we come up with. Come on back. We'll see you then.